Hello, dear hearts. So, aren't we indeed now settling into quite the territory of the season we're in astrologically, being Leo season, but also eclipse season, which always tests us in the most direct ways. In entry to this powerful astrological time, I wanted to talk to you about a prediction that I've been working on astrologically regarding Islam and where things are heading for Islam. The reason why this has really come to the pressure cooker point in terms of a key piece of information for the collective is all actually coming back to the message of this lifetime work that I'm involved in, linked to just being aware of enlightened lineages worldwide. And enlightened lineages are wherever truth has taken place, wherever awakened, fully awakened, realized beings have dwelled and have taught, and anything that has been I guess, supporting the path of truth, of the truth seeker's quest, not the opposite to that. So on a worldwide level, enlightened lineages have been within and throughout. There's not one place on this earth where enlightened presence has not taken place and functioned for the benefit of everyone. But in terms of lineages and how they have been broken, it's now very much laid out to us in bits and pieces and fragments, and only very few are still unbroken. And I have mentioned this, the lineages in the Buddhistic way, which definitely is currently classified as a religion, but once upon a time it was a philosophy, science, and basically talked about the mind, taught about the mind so well, and provided everything that was needed to obtain this awakening, this complete awakening and liberation, and freedom, which is a very important thing. Who wants to live in deceit? Who wants to encourage deception? So in respect to that and to this lifelong work around the enlightened lineages and, gathering all sorts of information and research to, I guess, encourage and inspire us all, because we all have it in us. We all have it in our being. It's there, access to the greatness is very much available to every single one of us. And why I feel the urgency now to talk about the astrological predictions for Islam is inspired by a few things. One being the work on the sacred feminine and the role that plays and how important that is. Another thing also, the recent exchange done with a dear friend who really cares about I guess themes such as these, and for us to not be disheartened by the state of matters, and seeking out the truth above all within us, but it's really necessary to also seek it out just by having a bigger look at things. So religion in general, if we look at the history of religion, if we look at religion on a worldwide level, a lot of it's been forced upon humanity with a lot of aggression. And religion in general, there's a lot of bloodshed if you look at it on a worldwide level. There's been so much that's happened in the name of religion that has been also the source of so much bloodshed. And just as we really are seeking out something very true, those who have come and actually taught the truth, have tend to had really bad things happen to them, and then what so-called followers, or if not followers, inauthentic followers, have done is then created their own version of so many different truths that have been indeed taught. The positive side to all this is that there are definitely infinite, beings and peoples out there who have understood the truth and have protected and preserved sacred truths worldwide. Now, whether some are out there and available to the world, others perhaps much more hidden. Just as people have destroyed it, there have been so many great kind beings that have also preserved and protected the truth. So without confusing anyone, because I don't want this to be too mind-boggling, but yes, it's been hard for people, generally speaking, to come back to the meaning, the deep meaning of it all, and the value of having a birth and being on this plane of existence, especially when now our places of worship are like shopping malls and very materialistic settings. When the ancients, regardless of all that's taken place, for thousands of years, their places of worship were always about reverence to divine presence, reverence to the forces of nature, reverence to this earth, right? And what this earth is giving us, the sacredness of this planet Earth, okay? And this is everywhere. Tribes people of today in rural parts of Africa and in many places still on this earth really do have that reverence and respect to the natural law and order, which comes back to this honoring and understanding the sacredness of the earth as one means of a point of reference, right? Which is very different to worshipping materialistic pursuits. In saying this, though, regardless of where we've been on this planet once upon a time, the challenges of our own mind will always be there, and whether we choose to see our mind and understand it and realize its authenticity, going through that true seeker's journey where we really return to our most authentic and truest place, that's coming from a choice within. And to put it in simple words, in a language that I understand as well, if we look at Odyssea, for example, Homer's works, such a creative and inexpressibly profound way of really describing that battle within, not just externally, but within, in that truth seeker's quest. And then what Odyssea had to endure and face in that long battle to then eventually make his way back home. So symbolically speaking, home being our most authentic state, and that is a challenge. It is a challenge because one has to seek out helpful allies, guides, teachers, people that have realized something. We have to seek them out. Odysseus in his journey home, he had his most beloved patron divinity, deity, realized manifestation, come to him so many times on his journey, but he didn't know that it was who he was worshipping. In fact, she came disguised many times as a beggar, as many different types of representations, and helped him, really did help him make sure that he returned home. So when we're looking at this quest for truth, when we're looking at the truth seeker's journey, it's very personal, it's your own unique contribution to the tapestry of a very marvelous, grand view. And And there has to be a wish for it, a wish to obtain a path and to have the right friends and guides and support around you, and to have the right altruistic motivation, because motivation is the most important thing. Motivation is so incredibly important that without it being altruistic, you won't be able to fly, you won't be able to soar, above the boundaries of the limitations of the self and the limitations of the ego identity, which aren't as grand as all the universes and dimensions that we have certainly known and have witnessed. So on that note, the astrology for the future of Islam. Okay, keeping in mind, I've really put a lot of effort into this because, Islam based on Prophet Muhammad's Islam is now various kinds of Islam. And just like, Jesus, right, was definitely, crucified for what he did, just like people like Socrates and how he challenged the world at his time through him preaching his beliefs, his philosophies ended up being his end. The same goes for people like Bhagwan Rajneesh, more modern history, Osho, incredible teacher, and so many people in power just wanted him to stop talking, to stop speaking, and did shut his way down. Now, it doesn't matter whether you all agree or disagree here. It's more about just being receptive to the bigger message in what is trying to be said right now. And astrologically, it's a massive subject. The future of Islam is a massive subject. So, what Prophet Muhammad, what happened when he connected with the Archangel, some say the Archangel Gabriel, in 610 AD, which is a good 1,300-400 years ago, okay? And, when he was at that Mount Hira near Mecca in Saudi Arabia, modern day Saudi Arabia, what he got from that visitation then became, Islam, right? And was then understood as being centrally focusing on someone called, the father, patron of the lineage, so to speak, someone called Allah, okay? But this is where we talk about the astrology here, moving forward. And it's going to be probably much more easy to receive this as advice, because it won't be easy what we're going to witness as a collective moving forward. However, the astrology strongly confirms about the following, okay? So, of course, in honor to Enlightened Lineages, and in honor of the truth as it is, and whatever brings us closer to that. So, pre-Islam, that whole region which is nowadays Mecca, was actually dedicated to the Great Mother Goddess, and her name was Allah also. She's also been known as Alat, Alatu, Alilat. There's been some, I guess, changes in her name, depending on the Arabian regions that respected and understood her. So, if we look at historically, if we go back into 500 BC, You know, the ancient Greeks have also written about Alat and connected to a Venusian theme, very, very fertile and sensually abundant sacred feminine presence. So that was all her territory, Mecca. And so was Mount Hira, and so was the entire Arabian world. I mean, that came under various great mother goddesses pre-Islam. Okay, and you know, I think the ancient Arabians, they understood Alat, Allah, the sacred feminine form, as what I've just described. Also, you know, if you look at the Assyrian world, they actually call her the Aphrodite Milita, coming from ancient Persian understanding of Aphrodite and her representation and role to them. So there was a crossover there. But it's interesting because, you know, the sacred feminine, the great mother goddess, having such a presence for thousands of years pre-Islam in the region, worshipped by the same name as what then became the patriarchal kind of father figure of Islam, coming in the form of a masculine so-called almighty God, right? That already challenged many historians. And recently there's been a lot of talk about, you know, for example, the museums in Saudi Arabia and how they have incredible excavations regarding the Great Mother Goddess. And, you know, they call it the pre-Islamic time, you know, of the region. And there's been a lot of talk about that because certain institutions, of course, don't want that to be a focus point. And there has been an uprising and a surge of movements not wanting the sacredness of the pre-Islamic understanding of the whole region to be lost, you know. So, yes, what was told, what was taught, what was understood, historians have actually argued now too, because, you know, even Allah in another scripture was actually pre-Islamic pagan god dedicated to the moon, and in certain tribes was a masculine form of a moon divinity, which prior to that was, of course, in the sacred feminine form. So then people are trying to understand, you know, how does this all fall into place if some say ancient, you know, texts confirmed that it was Archangel Gabriel who came and transmitted something to Prophet Muhammad, which then turned into what we know as the Quran and Islam. How does this all somehow respect the origination of the region and what sincerely dwelled there in a way that doesn't seem to have the destruction and the difficulties that took place with whatever man made post such transmissions and prophecies. So astrologically, yeah, we did talk about this 2014, 2015. We definitely discussed the sacred feminine revolution, the revolt, because everything, if you look at it from a perspective of chemistry, if you look at it, you know, biologically, if you look at it from just the understanding of nature as it is, everything has the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine. There is, you know, this type of play, positive and negative pulses of night and day, of, you know, the extreme ends of the same line, and this kind of important teaching that has been working for us for thousands of years, pre a lot of imposed, aggressive, understandings of different faiths, was about, the natural law and respecting how the sacredness of it all, I guess, supports our dwelling here, especially with the divine equipoise that comes from understanding the polarities, sacred masculine and sacred feminine, night and day, not just emphasizing on one thing. For example, if we only had day all the time, what type of food would we have? I mean, the sun's quite hot, and so it would be a very selective kind of cuisine, because a lot would dry up. I mean, it wouldn't be easy to live the way we do, right? So in this reality that we're in, the same goes for always having the moon and no sun. Nothing would live as it does. So the lunar and solar energy as a functional, as a primary functional in this reality we're in, it's very important within us and externally represented. It's very important. So in a sacred way, right? Not in a distorted way. So why all across the board, everywhere has the sacred feminine and her role and this sacred earth and its ability? Why has that been taken down or destroyed, disrespected, feared? Perfect example, the central figure of Islam, Allah, being originally Allah, sacred feminine, and flanked by two incredible, gorgeous goddesses, great mothers. They've also represented, a few thousand years ago, so, they've represented also the divine timing, the fates, past, present, future. So quite key and quite prominent and important sacred feminine presences there in Saudi Arabia and in ancient Islam and all of Arabia. So yes, the astrological predictions in saying this have really clearly described, which I've talked about, all the issues around the sacred feminine, where that's heading for us as a collective. I mentioned this 2014, 2015, and then in the big write-up I did, compiling all the things I've been writing in 2020 called The Capricornian Climax, which talked about this, what will happen when the sacred feminine has had enough, has reached her boiling point, as a force, as a force, which sustains life, which supports life and creates life, ends life, and so on and so forth. And the astrology of Islam moving forward is actually going to be one of the most chaotically, at the same time compromising situations, because if I look at my notes here, we have an origination that you just cannot contain anymore. You cannot box something like your mum, your sister, your wife, your daughter. You cannot put that in a box and put a lock on it and expect that we are going to be able to support the future of wherever such a faith is going. And as risky as this is, astrologically, it's very simple. It's actually based on an ignorant relationship to reality. And that also is dwelling in a lot of fear, and rightfully so, because the current understanding is very fear-based. And if you don't do something, you could be killed. That's quite difficult, wouldn't you say? So if you do something as well that you're not supposed to do, you could be also killed. And that doesn't exactly connect to the origination of all that was pre-Islam. You know, it was actually very empowering for the sacred feminine and very supportive to women's and tribes and regions that had many types of healers and very nomadic castes, actually, very mystical and very private types of sacred feminine presences. Some of these nomadic tribes that are from Arabia and surrounds, you know, they still are with us today. A lot of them have moved on to landscapes such as Jordan and Syria as well. But women still have a lot of divine presence. Somehow that's continued on in these tribes, these nomadic tribes, of an original movement and culture and way pre, you know, the Islam we know. So I have to say, continuing here with the astrology, 5 years from now, okay, you need to note this down. The unfortunate events that will take place in exactly 5 years from now will result in a very strong need for the peoples of what we know as Islam to deform their own faith and way, to restore it into something that is more ecologically understandable and fair to the masses and healthy. They will have to go to their origination, and there will be a lot of unfortunate events that create a lot of pressure for this to take place, especially the sacred feminine within Islam now, the women of Islam speaking for their own understandable need to have a voice, to have a say, to be empowered to get rid of what was unnecessary, added by man, versus their own actual truth that could have been preserved much better, but got, of course, distorted and turned into a very different, I guess, psychology. And we have to be honest and say that there's so many people connected to Islam, so many people on this earth that are connected to it but are not aware of how exactly they can tap into the authenticity, if any, left. And it's a struggle, because when you're born into something, you definitely protect and defend what you know, but at the same time you also don't want to be forced into doing things that don't seem kind or caring or respectful. So there is going to be a major revolution around Islam. The astrology points based on the founding astrology of when Islam was formed to what's happening, and it will start now, okay, but in 5 years that's when it's going to really happen. And you know, astrology has confirmed it's going to be sorrowful, because it won't let anyone fight for things that are outdated. It won't let anyone scam their way into negative behavioral patterns, and it will in a way really push a certain kind of old system out of Islam and force a more equal, kind of understandable system. Now, just how much truth can be restored and how much of pre-Islam can be enforced, you know, it all depends on the people's in power at the time. But there are a lot of women, the astrology points to women, it's all feminine planetary points saying that, you know, the women will sacrifice, will do so much to push for so much, and I'm sure it's already started in so many ways. So this is what I wanted to tell you all, dear ones, and yeah, these are tough times everywhere, but we have to keep our truth seeking beautiful journey right where it needs to be. Thank you so much.